The story starts with Hiraku. He was called to a god, because in his previous life he was betrayed by everyone, and he also was ill since 39 years. After his death, the god thought he had a sad life. As a result, the god of the worlds wanted to give Hiraku a second life. He wanted to give him a healthy body in his next lives, and Hiraku gets a wish granted as a bonus. Hiraku wanted to be a farmer in his next life, because he always watched shows about farmer in the hospital. Then the god of the worlds asked the god of agriculture if Hiraku would be allowed to farm in his next life. Hiraku got permission, and the god granted his wish to have a healthy body, and to farm in a place where no humans are around. In addition, the god gave him the power of the almighty farming tool. Then he started his new life as a farmer, and he first looked around his surroundings. After that, he tested the power of the almighty farming tool, and he could change it into any object and shape that he wanted. The almighty farming tool had a passive skill that he never got tired by using it. Then Hiraku tried to find water, and he dug into the ground until he found it. Hikaru quickly figured out how to use his newfound power and chop wood to build himself a small house. Unfortunately, Hiraku didn't manage to build a house in time, and he also wanted to make a fire before night fell on, but it was too late before he realized it. He then dug a hole in a tree and carved wooden dishes for himself. The next day he tested the water, and after that he started to make a fire. As he was chopping wood again, a monster attacked him, and he defeated it immediately, so he had rabbit meat for lunch. After that, Hiraku created a toilet, and he realized he needed more privacy, so he built a room around to the toilet. In the afternoon, Hiraku wanted to grow vegetables, and he dug the ground, realizing that he didn't have any seeds for fruit or vegetables. Hiraku then went to sleep, and when he woke up, he suddenly saw plants growing in his fields. He found out that he didn't need seeds and the plants grow by themselves. He didn't know what kind of plants to expect, but he was happy that something is growing. However, he decided to protect his fields from wild animals, and he built a shelter for them. Meanwhile, wild rabbits often tried to eat his plants, and he defeated them all. In the following days, he lived on rabbit meat, and managed to build a small hut. Several days passed like this, and suddenly 2 huge dogs appeared. They looked injured. Hiraku took care of the 2 dogs and gave them food. He fed them his hunted meat, because short time before, he killed a wild boar that was trying to break through his wall. Then Hiraku noticed that one of the dogs is pregnant. Hiraku wanted to help her, and he brought the 2 dogs to his little hut. Then he built a fire in front of the hut to keep the dogs warm, and then he went to sleep. The next day, Hiraku was happy to see the puppies were born healthy, and he fed the 2 dogs with meat. Then several days passed, and Hiraku built a new house, and he lived with the dogs. In addition, the plants that grew on the field turned into delicious tomatoes. Hiraku also named his dogs with Yuki and Kuro. They helped him a lot with guarding the vegetable fields and hunting the meat. That was the starting point of Hiraku's peaceful life as a farmer in another world. Over the next few days, Hiraku figured out how to grow different types of vegetables, because he only had to imagine the type of vegetable he wanted to grow. The plants that he wanted appeared every time, and they were always grew very quickly. Unfortunately, Hiraku still had difficulties with the cultivation, and had to learn a lot as a farmer. He also created statues to honor the gods, who gave him his new life. Then Hiraku made a stew, and he remarked that he needed spices, since his food is very tasteless. In the days that followed, he grew fruits and often played with his dogs. He noted that they evolved over time. His dogs were very helpful, because with their help, he could easily explore the forest, and he found a river. Thereupon, Hiraku decided to build a water supply to his settlement, and he immediately started the construction work. When he built a water supply, he increased his arable land to continue growing crops. Then many days passed, and slowly it got colder. Hikaru wanted to prepare for the winter, but the fur of the wild animals stank that he couldn't use it to keep himself warm. One day, a giant spider appeared. He greeted Hiraku and showed his awesome skills to create clothes. The spider could make clothes, and Hiraku accepted it into his settlement. After that, the giant spider lived with Hiraku, and he made clothes and other great things that he wanted, so his spider got the name Zabuton. Then it was winter, and Hiraku was perfectly prepared for the cold days. But during the winter, he realized that he felt lonely without a person to talk to. When it was spring, the puppies of his dogs were grown, and they went into the forest. They reappeared a few days later, and they had found partners. In addition, there was another surprise in the spring, because Zabuton showed up with children even after winter. However, Hiraku increased his arable fields, as he knew that he had to produce more food. While cultivating the fields, Hiraku was signaled an alarm by his pets, and his dog Kuro led him into the forest. Hiraku spotted a little girl, and his dogs threatened her. Hiraku stopped the dogs and went to give her his jacket, but the girl bit Hiraku on his neck. She grew through his blood, and she thanked him, but one of his dogs reacted and attacked her again. They thought the girl attacked Hiraku. As a result, she shrank back into a little girl. Then the little girl apologized to Hiraku, and he understood that she is harmless. This is how Hiraku learned that she was fighting his dogs, and she was using up all her strength in the fight. Hiraku offered her to drink his blood so she could hold her true form. Then she grew up again, and he showed her his settlement and the types of vegetables he grew. The vampire girl named Lu was impressed by his vegetables, since she saw them for the first time. He spent the whole day with her to showing his plants, and in the evening he learned that she is a vampire who was hunted by nobles. For this reason, she fled into the forest, and Hiraku learned that his dogs and spiders are strong wild beasts. After that, Lu asked if she could stay longer at his settlement to do research on his plants. Hiraku was pleased at her words, and he asked her if Lu would like to live with him forever, as he was very lonely. Lu was unsure at first, as there were dangerous people chasing them, and she didn't want to put Hiraku in danger. So Hiraku changed her mind, and Lu took his question as a proposal. She asked if he really wanted her as a wife. When Hiraku understood the misunderstanding, he didn't hesitate, and asked her to be his wife again, and she accepted his proposal, and decided to live with him forever. The next day, Hiraku was tending his crops, and Lu showed up, wanting to see more of his crops. Lu also asked if he could sow medicinal herbs in the fields. So Hiraku lived with his new wife Lu, and his settlement slowly grew into a village. Since Lu has been living with Hiraku, his life has become much better, because Lu was able to create light by using magic. Also, Hiraku learned from Lu where he can get salt to pimp up his meals. After that, Hiraku wanted to show the new plants he had grown, and he drank tea with her. Suddenly the alarm went off, and Hiraku looked into the forest. Arriving in the forest, an angel was attacked by his pets and tied up. Hiraku freed her and the woman, thanked him, and used her healing powers to heal her injuries. Then Lu tried to sneak away secretly, because the angel wanted to catch her. However, the angel were invited to Hiraku's house, and she learned that he is Lu's husband. She was surprised by the news, so Tia introduced herself and explained that she is an angel. Hiraku also learned that Lu had a bounty on her head, because she always causes problems when she is researching medicines and concoctions. The reason was, she always causes explosions that made a lot of property damage. Lu responded to her statement that it wasn't on purpose, and she told Hiraku that she fled into the forest because Tia was chasing after her. Thereafter, Lu asked if Tia would like to live with them in Hiraku's settlement. Lu then showed her the village fields, and when she introduced Tia, the spider Zabuton, she fainted with fear. When Tia regained consciousness, she was shown the types of vegetables that Hiraku had planted. Hiraku seasoned his salad with salt, and Tia tasted his salad. They then harvested vegetables until the evening, and Hiraku was jealous of the two for being able to purify themselves with magic. In the evening, Tia was asked if she enjoyed the day, and then Lu decided that Tia should live with them in the village. In the following days, they harvested delicious vegetables and fruits, and Tia helped Hiraku expand the village. A few days later, they walked past the doghouse, and Hiraku noticed that his dogs gave birth to new puppies. So the dog family of Yuki and Kuro grew again. Hiraku wanted to give them more space, and planned to build a bigger doghouse for them. He also wanted to think about names for the puppies. After that, some of Zabuton's children said goodbye to Hiraku. Later, Tia also wanted to leave the village for a while. She said that she wanted to do some errands outside of the village. A few days later, Tia reappeared with a group of high elves, and they introduced themselves, all using the family name Leah. Tia then explained to him that their village was wiped out in the war, and they have had no home since then. Hiraku invited the high elves to his village, because he saw no problem with them living in his village. After that, the elves were introduced to the giant spider Zabuton, and the inferno wolves by Hiraku. The high elves all passed out from their fear, because Hiraku's pets are actually dangerous monsters. After that, they built houses and toilets. The high elves were impressed by Hiraku's power to cut down a tree, because he had enormous power. 10 days later, the house of the elves was finished, and Hiraku was depressed, as the house of the elves was much nicer than his little hut. After that, they looked at the new house, and Hiraku hoped that the high elves would feel comfortable in his village. In the days that followed, the elves settled in, and Hiraku realized that his knowledge of elves from his previous life is all wrong. He realized that they're not vegetarians, and they have blacksmith skills. In the days that followed, Hiraku built a furnace, and the elves made cooking pots. Hiraku was happy with the cooking pots that their elves could make. Afterwards, the elves thanked him and said that they are happy to have found a new home and can now focus on making babies. Hiraku remarked that they don't know anything about making babies, but Hiraku wasn't ready to tell the innocent elves how babies are born. In the days that followed, they lived together, and Hiraku baked bread, which he let everyone try. When Hiraku wanted to plant more fields for new plants, he realized that he didn't know who owned the piece of land he founded his village on. Lu told him that technically it belongs to the demon lord, but she said he didn't need to worry as he built everything himself on the land. So he is now the owner of the piece of land. In the evening the women talked among themselves and they admired Hiraku, that he could grow such delicious vegetables, and also that he could tame such strong monsters as the inferno wolf and demon spiders. In the days that followed, Zabuton caught a giant queen bee. He wanted Hiraku to keep the queen bee as a pet. However, Hiraku built a small house as a bee home for the queen bee, and he looked forward to the honey his bees would produce. After that, Hiraku wanted to build a water reservoir, and he and an elf figured out how to transport the water from the river to the village. The next step was, Hiraku created a waterway with the excavated earth. Followed, they always had fresh water in the village. The elves were very diligent and helped Hiraku with the construction work. The water supply to his village was quickly completed with the high elves' help, and Hiraku was able to water his fruit and vegetables in his village. When building his water supply, he also found fresh fish. They were washed up, and he decided to grill them. The others in the village were surprised that Hiraku cooked them into one dish, because the fish are very dangerous, and no one can imagine that they taste good. When Hiraku's fish dish was cooked, nobody wanted to try it because they were scared. Hiraku tasted it first, and it was delicious. Thereafter his wife Lu and his friend Tia also liked his fish dish, following which the elves also wanted to try his fish. In the days that followed, Hiraku wanted to plant rice. He built a paddy field, and everyone was surprised that he filled his field with water. They thought he wanted to raise fish, but Hiraku taught them how to plant rice in the field. When the rice was ready to be harvested, the Leia elves helped him to harvest. After that, Hiraku dried his rice. Followed, the rice was finished processing, and Hiraku also cooked the rice in a pot. Then Hiraku made rice balls, and the girls were surprised how delicious it tasted. Everyone loved Hiraku's rice balls, so there was nothing left for him. In the days that followed, Hiraku built a bathhouse and tried to find a way to dispose of the sewage. So he changed the water pipe, and Tia showed Hiraku cute slimes that were harmless, and they can clean the dirt. Followed, he used them as a filter to recycle their water. While Hiraku was chopping wood, he was also trying to grow edible mushrooms. Then everything was prepared for his bathhouse, and Hiraku had to show the girls how to behave in the bathhouse. When Hiraku was in the tub, all the women appeared in with them in the tub, and Hiraku showed his shy side. He couldn't relax in the presence of the pretty women. The next morning, Hiraku's edible mushrooms grew, and his inferno wolves found 5 more elves. Their names all started with La, and they were also lucky to live in Hiraku's village. Then we see the former life of Kuro as he lived without his master Hiraku. Kuro lived alone in the dangerous forest, and he had never lost a fight until he met Yuki. She instantly defeated him, and he fell in love with her. However, one day she got pregnant, and Kuro was looking forward to his puppies, but they were attacked by a very strong bear. Kuro and his wife were injured, and didn't have enough strength to hunt their own food. Then they met Hiraku. First they thought Hiraku was a weak human, but Hiraku gave them food, and they saw his strength by fighting a boar. That's how life with Hiraku began, and shortly after, Kuro's children were born. Hiraku took care of his puppies, and more powerful women appeared in his village, whom he led. Kuro knew that Hiraku has almighty Rizz power, but he wondered if Hiraku knows that Kuro is a dangerous inferno wolf and not a dog. Despite Hiraku not knowing his true identity, Kuro enjoyed spending time with Hiraku. After that, Hiraku was building a new house, and he couldn't believe how much space the house had. Also, Hiraku discovered that he had a great view of his village's giant tree in his new home. He was happy about the construction of the high elves, and he also put statues of Kuro and Yuki outside of his new home. The next day, Hiraku wanted to cook curry, and he still needed spices, so he showed Lu and Tia new plants that were all ready to be harvested. With his almighty farming tool, he planted delicious spices that went very well with his dishes. Followed, Hiraku showed the 2 girls different types of vegetables, and they dried them with their magic to turn them into spices. When Hiraku showed his dogs coriander, they ran away as they couldn't stand the smell. Lu and Tia got interested in them, that inferno wolves don't like coriander. After that, Hiraku harvested black pepper and cayenne pepper. Hiraku then had all the spices for his curry, and the elf Leah wanted to help him to cook. Then Hiraku and Leah started to prepare everything. Leah learned a lot from cooking with Hiraku. Hiraku showed her the steps of cooking a curry meal. He attracted many spectators with the delicious smell of his curry. When they almost finished making the curry, Hiraku remarked that he has to cook a bread named naan to go with the curry. Then Hiraku prepared dough, and Leah rolled out the dough, while more and more people appeared, and Hiraku watched while cooking. When Hiraku's naan bread was finished baking, Hiraku served the curry to all of his friends, and he showed him how to eat the dish. He dipped his bread in the sauce, and when everyone tried it, they were amazed at how delicious the curry tasted. All the women loved his curry, and they immediately went for more, so the dish was quickly eaten, and Hiraku was happy about their beautiful smiles. In the days that followed, Hiraku prepared for the winter, gathering enough firewood and collecting blankets from Zabuton. Meanwhile, Tia and Lu used magic to preserve meat for the winter, since the inferno wolves aren't able to hunt in the snow. Then Hiraku tried to preserve vegetables, becoming jealous of the others, since he can't use magic. In the evening, Lu explained to him that humans needs magic in the body to cast spells. Hiraku told his wife Lu how much he would like to do magic, but Lu encouraged him that he didn't need it, because he was special even without magic. When winter fell on, Hiraku spent a lot of time playing games. He made funny games by himself, and explained to his friends how the rules of the game worked. When Lu was playing with Tia and Lu almost lost, Hiraku remarked that Lu hates losing, because she knocked over the entire board. Tia couldn't accept it, and used her magic against Lu, and she set the board back up. Then he watched the elves, and Hiraku remarked that his dogs are extremely smart, which were very good at chess. After that, Lu wanted to play against Kuro, and she lost. Later they played mahjong, and Hiraku thought he was going to win against Kuro, but his dog once again beat everyone in the game. In the days that followed, Hiraku created more games. As a result, they played bowling. Hiraku showed his skills to everyone, but the women all played better than him. So Hiraku spent the winter playing games and cooking delicious food with his friends. Winter passed quickly, and when spring fell on, Hiraku wanted to wake up his giant spider Zabuton from his hibernation. Suddenly a wyvern flew to them, and Hiraku was alerted by Zabuton that danger was coming. The wyvern demonstrated his tremendous strength, and he attacked Hiraku's village with a breath of fire. Hiraku wanted to protect everyone, and he tried to shape a spear with his almighty farming tool. He managed to create a strong spear, and he immediately attacked the wyvern. The wyvern countered and had a strong barrier. Hiraku was able to injure the wyvern on his wing, and he immediately attacked again, so he defeated the strong wyvern. After that, Hiraku sought out the wyvern in the forest, and Lu told him that a dragon appears relatively rarely. The reason is wyverns are rare creatures. Hiraku feared that someone might have sent the wyvern to attack them. The others assumed that he was bound to show up alone, and Hiraku decided to eat the wyvern. As a result, Hiraku prepared a delicious wyvern steak, with many delicious side dishes. Everyone thought Hiraku's dish was delicious, and they were happy about tasting the rare meat. During the meal, Lu asked Tia if she could manage to deflect Hiraku's spear attack, but they couldn't, because Hiram is overpowered. Then we see the demon general Bezel in the demon palace. He reported to the other demon generals that a wyvern was defeated by unknown persons. Meanwhile, the dragon named Drime also saw the attack from his cave, and his assistant said that even Drime would die by Hiraku's attack. The next morning, Hiraku wanted to make alcohol, and the elves were delighted. They then harvested grapes, and Hiraku built a device to process the grapes. The girls should crush the grapes, and meanwhile Hiraku will take care of the barrels. So the girls started to walk on the grapes, but Tia stumbled, and they tried to stomp the grapes in the same rhythm. The elves started singing, and everyone had a lot of fun making wine, so Hiraku also joined in to stomping the grapes. In the evening they had many barrels full of the crushed grapes, and the god of the worlds was being yelled at by the goddess of agriculture. The reason is the goddess was angry that he sent Hiraku into the forest of death, and also gifted him with a replica of the holy lance Grime. She was angry because the forest of death is far too dangerous for a normal human. Besides, if he didn't have such a healthy body, his weapon would have drained him all of his life energy. The god of the worlds was punished by his daughter. The next day, Hiraku found another little vampire girl named Flora in the forest. It turned out that she is Lu's little sister. Arriving at the village, Flora learned that Hiraku is Lu's husband. She couldn't believe it first, because she thought Hiraku is a weak human, so Kuro threatened her for her disrespect towards Hiraku. Flora then apologized, and Hiraku found out that his dogs are actually wolves. In the evening, Flora discovered Hiraku's delicious food, and she learned many new things in his village. Flora liked the village, and she showed up a month later with an army of maids. The leader of the maidens was Anne. They belonged to the ogre breed, and they also had cows with them. Suddenly realizing that Tia had no peers, she also enlisted reinforcements, and by her return back to the village, she had brought 3 angel guardians to Hiraku's village. She also returned with a bunch of lizard men who brought chickens. Hiraku was happy that they were normal chickens, otherwise he only encountered dangerous animals. In the days that followed, he saw the maids, and they took care of the household of Hiraku. They were professionals and completed all tasks very quickly, but their food was very tasteless. Following this, Hiraku taught the maids new delicious dishes. The maids learned quickly and were happy to have learned new cooking skills from Hiraku. Then we see the 3 angels of Tia. They ensured the safety of the village and regularly patrolled the forest. Then Hiraku looked after the lizard men who accelerated the construction work. The leader of the lizard men wore a red bandana around his arm because Hiraku couldn't tell them apart. Then Hiraku noticed that the population of his village has grown a lot since the beginning. Suddenly one of the elves appeared, and she showed him another group of elves she had found in the forest. In the evening, Hiraku wanted to choose a name for his village, and he brainstormed ideas with his friends. Zabuton gave Hiraku an idea, and he named it the Great Tree Village. Everyone loved the name of the village, and all the villagers wanted Hiraku as the mayor of their village. Then they started celebrating, and the Great Tree Village was officially established.